They stood at the podium holding the most coveted prize in cinema. The camera loved them, the world watched them. In this video, we visit the graves of Oscar-winning actors. Spencer Tracy died June 10, 1967, age 67, buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park, Glendale, California. The only actor to win consecutive Best Actor Oscars for Captain's Courageous in 1937 and Boys Town in 1938. 9 nominations across 30 years. His secret 25-year partnership with Katharine Hepburn kept entirely private. MGM protecting the illusion of the marriage he never legally ended, his Catholic faith not permitting divorce. Hepburn was not allowed at his funeral. The man who won Hollywood's highest honor twice, never able to live honestly as the person he was off-screen. Clark Gable died November 16, 1960, age 59, buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park, Glendale, California, beside Carole Lombard, the King of Hollywood. His portrayal of Rhett Butler, the most celebrated role in American cinema. Lombard died in a plane crash returning from a war bonds tour in 1942, and Gable enlisted within weeks, flying combat missions over Germany at an age that required no such sacrifice. The Misfits, his final film, dying of a heart attack 10 days after shooting concluded. His son John Clark, born 4 months after his father's death. The King of Hollywood dying before he knew he had an heir. Grace Kelly died September 14, 1982, age 52. Buried at the Cathedral of Our Lady Immaculate, Monaco. Best Actress at 26 for The Country Girl. She abandoned one of the most promising careers in Hollywood at its peak to marry Prince Rainier III and become a princess. Hitchcock's muse. She never made another film after the wedding. Dying at 52 when her car went off a mountain road above Monaco. Her daughter Stephanie in the passenger seat. The Oscar on a shelf in the palace. The career that ended twice. Once by choice and once by a road in the south of France. Hattie McDaniel died October 26, 1952, age 59. Buried at Angeles Rosedale Cemetery, Los Angeles, California. The first African-American to win an Academy Award. Best Supporting Actress for Gone with the Wind in 1940. At a ceremony where she was required to sit at a segregated table apart from her white co-stars. She could not attend the Atlanta premiere because the theater was whites only. She requested in her will to be buried at Hollywood Forever Cemetery. The cemetery denied her because of her race. The woman who made Oscar history in 1940 spent her final years fighting a blacklist. The cemetery she wanted would not take her. James Cagney died March 30, 1986, age 86. Buried at Gate of Heaven Cemetery, Hawthorne, New York. Best Actor for Yankee Doodle Dandy in 1942. The fast-talking, physically explosive actor from the Lower East Side who defined the Warner Brothers. Gangster film. He walked away from Hollywood in 1961, retreating to his Dutchess County farm, raising cattle and painting watercolors for nearly 2 decades. Ragtime in 1981 brought him back at 81. He died of diabetes and arteriosclerosis. The man who had sprinted through every role finally stopped. The gangster from the Lower East Side, dying from a farm in upstate New York. Peter Finch died January 14, 1977, age 60, buried at Hollywood Forever Cemetery, Los Angeles, California. The first actor to receive an Academy Award posthumously, winning Best Actor for Network 2 months after dying of a heart attack in the lobby of the Beverly Hills Hotel. His performance as the television anchorman who announces on live air that he intends to shoot himself is one of the defining screen portraits of American media culture. His family accepted the Oscar from an empty chair. The man who said, "I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore," dying before he could hear the room go silent when his name was called. Elizabeth Taylor died March 23, 2011, age 79. Buried in the Great Mausoleum at Forest Lawn Memorial Park, Glendale, California, beneath a marble angel. 2 Best Actress Oscars for Butterfield 8 in 1960 and Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf in 1966. MGM treating her as an asset from age 9, her career and her body administered by the studio as inventory. 8 marriages to 7 men. More than 20 major surgeries. Her AIDS advocacy beginning in 1985, when carrying the cause carried a real cost, raising hundreds of millions. The child actress who became the most famous woman in the world for 5 decades. Buried beneath an angel in the same cemetery as the friend she had outlived by 2 years. George C. Scott died September 22, 1999, age 71. Buried at Westwood Village Memorial Park, Los Angeles, California. The first person to refuse an Academy Award, declining the Best Actor Oscar for Patton in 1970 before the ceremony took place, calling the competition process demeaning. The Academy gave it to him anyway. The statue sat uncollected, 5 marriages. Chronic alcoholism operating alongside and sometimes against the force of his talent. He died having never changed his position on the Oscar or on anything else. The man who refused Hollywood's highest honor buried in one of Hollywood's most visited cemeteries. John Wayne died June 11, 1979, age 72. Buried at Pacific View Memorial Park, Newport Beach, California, in an unmarked grave kept secret from the public for 20 years. Best Actor at 62 for True Grit, his only Oscar nomination in a career spanning 5 decades and more than 170 films. A cancer diagnosis in 1964 requiring the removal of an entire lung, the studio initially concealing the illness to protect his box office value. He worked for 15 more years on a single lung, his grave unmarked until 1999, when a bronze plaque finally appeared. The man who embodied American toughness buried in secret, America erecting statues of him elsewhere, while the grave had no name on it. Jack Lemmon died June 27, 2001, age 76. Buried at Westwood Village Memorial Park, Los Angeles, California, his gravestone reading Jack Lemmon in, blank the joke requiring a headstone to deliver. 2 Oscars from 8 nominations, Best Supporting Actor for Mr. Roberts in 1955, and Best Actor for Save the Tiger in 1973, the first person to win both categories. His friendship with Walter Matthau producing 10 films across 30 years. Bladder cancer ending his life 11 months after Matthau died in the same cemetery. The comedian who wrote his own punchline and put it on the stone. Gene Hackman died approximately February 18, 2025, age 95. Buried at Rivera Memorial Gardens, Santa Fe, New Mexico, in an unmarked plot beneath a tree, identified only by a single conch shell on the grass. 2 Best Actor Oscars for The French Connection in 1971 and Unforgiven in 1992. He had retired entirely in 2004 and spent his final years in Santa Fe. His wife Betsy died first of hantavirus. Hackman, suffering from advanced Alzheimer's, remained in the house for approximately a week with her body before dying of heart disease. Both discovered by maintenance workers. His estranged children, excluded from his will, organized the private burial. The Oscar winner's grave without a marker, a shell in the grass above him. Ernest Borgnine died July 8, 2012, age 95. Buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park, Hollywood Hills, California. Best Actor at 38 for Marty in 1955. The small film about a lonely Bronx butcher that won Best Picture and launched one of the more unexpected careers in Hollywood. He had played sadists and villains for years, his face not easily cast as a leading man. He worked continuously for 60 more years, earning an Emmy nomination at 92. 5 marriages, including one to Ethel Merman lasting 32 days. He died at 95, still working, still impossible to place in the category of tragic. The man who won an Oscar by being ordinary, living long enough to outlast everyone around him. Rodster died July 9, 2002, age 77. Buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park, Hollywood Hills, California. Best Actor for In the Heat of the Night in 1967, 3 nominations across 13 years before winning. 17 electroconvulsive therapy treatments for depression in the 1970s, speaking publicly about the illness decades before it was professionally survivable to do so. Open heart surgery, bypass surgery. The body requiring repeated intervention, the man inside doing the same. His candor about suffering something the earlier Hollywood culture had made nearly impossible. The actor who played racism's slow moral collapse dying in a city that had spent a century making certain that subject was never addressed directly. Gary Cooper died May 13, 1961, age 60. Buried at Sacred Heart Cemetery, Southampton, New York. Reinterred there in 1974 after his family moved east. 2 Best Actor Oscars for Sergeant York in 1941 and High Noon in 1952. His face, the weathered, laconic face of the frontier, producing its most celebrated work when most actors considered their era finished. High Noon shot in real time, Cooper's face doing the work that pages of dialogue might have attempted, the clock behind him counting out the hour. Lung cancer diagnosed in 1960, his close friend Ernest Hemingway telling companions he did not intend to outlive him. Hemingway died 6 weeks after Cooper, the laconic hero buried quietly in the Hamptons, far from the frontier he spent his life representing. Lee Marvin died August 29, 1987, age 63. Buried at Arlington National Cemetery, Arlington, Virginia, Section 7A, among the nation's military dead. Best Actor for Cat Ballou in 1965, playing a drunken gunfighter and his ice-cold twin. A performance of deliberate comic precision that upended the Western's relationship between violence and dignity. Severely wounded at the Battle of Saipan in 1944, his sciatic nerve damaged in action. The government disability check of $13.50 a month running until the day he died. He chose Arlington specifically. The soldier who became an actor, never forgetting which thing he had been first. The actor who played both sides of the moral equation, buried among the men who only had one side. James Stewart died July 2, 1997, age 89. Buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park, Glendale, California. Best Actor for The Philadelphia Story in 1940. He flew 20 combat missions over Germany, rising to Brigadier General in the Air Force Reserve, the only major Hollywood star to serve in active combat. His post-war partnership with Hitchcock produced Rear Window and Vertigo, the idealism of his pre-war films replaced by something far more unresolved and untrustworthy. He lost his stepson Ronald in Vietnam. He spent his final years largely silent about everything. The most beloved face in American cinema, buried in a private section no visitor can reach. Loretta Young died August 12, 2000, age 87. Buried at Holy Cross Cemetery, Culver City, California. Best Actress for The Farmer's Daughter in 1947. Her personal Catholicism, the organizing principle of her public life, a swear jar operated with seriousness on her own television set. The secret organizing her private life was different. Her daughter Judy Lewis, born in 1935, was the product of an affair with Clark Gable that Young concealed for decades, presenting the child as an orphan she had adopted. Judy Lewis published a memoir in 1994, The Secret, printed while her mother still lived. Young died 6 years later without fully addressing it. The actress whose brand was built on religious devotion, carrying a secret about her own daughter for most of her life. Joan Crawford died May 10th, 1977, age 73, buried at Ferncliff Cemetery, Hartsdale, New York. Best Actress for Mildred Pierce in 1945. The comeback after MGM declared her box office poison. She kept working when the industry said she was finished. She kept her seat on the Pepsi-Cola board after her fourth husband's death until the board removed her. She died alone in her New York apartment from cardiac arrest, having dismissed her housekeeper and nurse in the preceding weeks. Her will excluding adopted children Christina and Christopher entirely. The actress who won Hollywood back after being discarded, leaving a will that settled old scores from beyond the grave. Bing Crosby died October 14, 1977, age 74, buried at Holy Cross Cemetery, Culver City, California. Best Actor for Going My Way in 1944. The most popular entertainer in America for over 2 decades. The top-grossing box office star for 5 consecutive years. He died on a golf course outside Madrid after completing 18 holes, telling his playing partners it had been a great game before collapsing minutes later. The most popular entertainer in America for 20 years, dying on a golf course in the middle of the afternoon, the score still in his head. Ingrid Bergman died August 29, 1982, age 67. Buried at Norra Begravningsplatsen Cemetery, Stockholm, Sweden. 3 Academy Awards spanning 30 years. Best Actress for Gaslight in 1944 and Anastasia in 1956, and Best Supporting Actress for Murder on the Orient Express in 1974. Blacklisted from Hollywood in 1950 after leaving her husband and daughter to have a child with Roberto Rossellini, a United States Senator reading a speech into the congressional record, calling her a powerful influence for evil. Anastasia brought her back 7 years later, the Academy's second Oscar, its collective act of reabsorption. Breast cancer diagnosed in 1974, 8 years of treatment and continued work until the end. The woman Congress called an influence for evil, dying with 3 Oscars and her work still in front of her. Walter Matthau died July 1, 2000, age 79, buried at Westwood Village Memorial Park, Los Angeles, California. Best Supporting Actor for The Fortune Cookie in 1966, the first of 10 films with Jack Lemmon across 32 years. A massive heart attack during filming of The Odd Couple, the production shutting down, Matthau returning to complete the decades-defining comedy after months of recovery. A gambling addiction running through the middle years. A devotion to horse racing that never returned what he projected. his closest friend Lemon dying in the same cemetery 11 months later. The most famous partnership in American comedy ending the only way it was always going to, in two plots in Westwood a short walk apart. Simone Signoret died September 30th, 1985, age 64. Buried at Père Lachaise Cemetery, Paris, France. Best Actress at 39 for Room at the Top in 1960, the first non-American actress to win for a non-American film. A signatory of the Manifesto of the 121 supporting Algerian independence at a time when such a signature carried legal risk in France. Married to Yves Montand for 35 years through an affair that became the most scrutinized relationship in French cultural life. Stomach cancer taking her at 64, the American Academy gave her its highest award in 1960. France buried her among its own at Père Lachaise, in the cemetery that has absorbed 2 centuries of French cultural achievement and absorbed her, without ceremony. Maximilian Schell died February 1, 2014, age 83, buried at Grumet Cemetery, Breitenegg, Austria. Best Actor at 30 for Judgment at Nuremberg in 1961, playing the defense attorney at the trial of German judges with a ferocity that nearly overwhelmed the film's moral framework. His family had fled Vienna for Switzerland in 1938 when he was 8. The geography of the catastrophe embedded in his biography in ways that made the Nuremberg performance not merely professional but something close to personal reckoning. Nominated twice more in subsequent decades, he produced, directed, wrote, performed in opera. He died of pneumonia in Innsbruck and was buried in Austria, the country his family had fled when he was a child. Anthony Quinn died June 3, 2001, age 86, buried on his private estate in Bristol, Rhode Island. 2 Best Supporting Actor Oscars for Viva Zapata in 1952 and Lust for Life in 1956, the second for playing Paul Gauguin in approximately 15 minutes of screen time, among the shortest performances ever to win. He painted seriously, sculpted seriously, had 13 children by 5 women. He could play Greek peasants and Mexican revolutionaries and Italian patriarchs, and the industry kept casting him because no one else inhabited elemental physicality the way he did. Buried on his own land in Rhode Island, outside the cemeteries and memorial parks of Hollywood, the final assertion of a man who had always operated at a slight angle to the industry that employed him. Yul Brynner died October 10, 1985, age 65. Buried at St. Robert Churchyard, Louzé, Indre-et-Loire for France. Best Actor for The King and I in 1956, a role he originated on Broadway in 1951 and returned to in a revival tour from 1977 that ran 4 years and more than 4,000 performances. The role and the man having merged entirely. He recorded a public service announcement about lung cancer to be broadcast only after his death, addressing the camera with the authority of the king, saying if he had not smoked, he would still be here. He died October 10th. The announcement aired October 11th. The king whose kingdom eventually contracted to the size of an abbey garden in France. Frederick March died April 14, 1975, age 77. Buried at Stony Creek Cemetery, Stony Creek, Connecticut. 2 Best Actor Oscars for Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde in 1931 and The Best Years of Our Lives in 1946. His performance as the returning bomber pilot unable to readjust to civilian life, containing a quality of unguarded confusion that the studio system rarely permitted its leading men to display. Investigated by the House Un-American Activities Committee in the early 1950s, the blacklist damaging his standing for years. He worked through it, the talent too undeniable to fully sideline. He died in Los Angeles but was taken to Connecticut, to the small coastal churchyard that had been his family's home. The actor who played the returning soldier's confusion, buried far from Hollywood in New England grass. Jose Ferrer died January 26, 1992, age 80, buried at Santa Maria Magdalena de Pasi Cemetery. Old San Juan, Puerto Rico. Best Actor for Cyrano de Bergerac in 1950, The Long Nose and the Longer Shadow. The entire romantic tradition of the brilliant man who believes his appearance disqualifies him from the love he is most capable of inspiring. Pressured by the House Un-American Activities Committee, he cooperated, the capitulation required for his career to survive. He worked prolifically for 4 more decades, appearing in over 70 films. Buried in Puerto Rico, the island he had left as a child for New York, the journey completing itself in the cemetery above the old city looking out over the Atlantic. Paul Scofield died March 19, 2008, age 86. Buried at Balcombe Churchyard, West Sussex, England. Best Actor for A Man for All Seasons in 1966. His Thomas More a performance of such interior conviction and restraint that it operates almost entirely on the qualities it refuses to display. The definitive stage actor of his generation, doing films selectively and reluctantly, turning down Hamlet in the Olivia film, turning down Gandalf. He retired entirely in his later years, giving no interviews, making no appearances. Buried in a West Sussex churchyard in the county where he was born, the actor who had kept the audience at a precise and calculated distance right to the end. Walter Brennan died September 21, 1974, age 80. Buried at San Fernando Mission Cemetery, Mission Hills, California. 3 Academy Awards for Best Supporting Actor for Come and Get It in 1936, Kentucky in 1938, and The Westerner in 1940, the only person in history to win that category 3 times. He had lost most of his teeth in an accident in the 1930s, which paradoxically expanded his range by allowing him to play aged characters from his early 30s onward. He worked continuously for 60 years, appearing in more than 200 films and television programs. He died of emphysema at 80, buried at the Mission Cemetery in the Valley. The man who won 3 of them buried in a cemetery beside a mission founded 2 centuries before he was born. Carl Malden died July 1, 2009, age 97. Buried at Westwood Village Memorial Park, Los Angeles, California. Best Supporting Actor for A Streetcar Named Desire in 1951, repeating his Broadway role as Mitch in Elia Kazan's film adaptation alongside Brando and Tandy. He was president of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences from 1989 to 1992. He appeared in more than 200 films and television productions and lived to 97, earning an Emmy nomination at 92. Buried at Westwood, the last surviving member of the original Streetcar cast, the man who stood at the beginning of a revolution in American performance and outlived almost everyone who had been there with him. Dorothy Malone died January 19, 2018, age 93, buried at Sparkman Hillcrest Memorial Park, Dallas, Texas. Best Supporting Actress for Written on the Wind in 1956. A performance of such concentrated desire and grief that it operates as a film within the film, her character the one person in the story who wants something the film's moral framework refuses to give her. She spent a decade in the television series Peyton Place, the transition from film to television in the 1960s, representing a demotion the industry later pretended had never been a demotion. She died at 93 in Dallas, the city she had left as a young woman to make movies and returned to after the industry was through with her. Katharine Hepburn died June 29, 2003, age 96, buried at Cedar Hill Cemetery, Hartford, Connecticut, in the family plot she had arranged in advance with characteristic precision. 4 Best Actress Oscars for Morning Glory in 1932, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner in 1967, The Lion in Winter in 1968, and On Golden Pond in 1981, more wins in the category than anyone in the history of the award. The 25-year relationship with Spencer Tracy conducted entirely outside the industry's normalizing machinery, the 2 of them appearing together in 9 films and never once acknowledging publicly what they were to each other. She wore trousers when the studios had explicit rules against it and refused to change them. She was declared box office poison in 1938 and won her second Oscar 30 years later. She kept the 4 statues in a bathroom. Anna Magnani died September 26, 1973, age 65, buried at Campo Verano Cemetery, Rome, Italy. Best Actress at 47 for The Rose Tattoo in 1955, the first Italian actress to win that Oscar. The defining actress of Italian neorealism, appearing in Roma Città Aperta in 1945 while German troops were still in the city, the rawness of that production part of the rawness of her entire career. Declining gradually from pancreatic cancer in her final years. Working when she could, she left instructions for burial at Campo Verano, the vast Roman cemetery outside the old city walls where figures of Italian cultural life have been placed for centuries. The American Oscar in her apartment in Rome, her grave in the cemetery that predates the empire that built the city around it. Helen Hayes died March 17, 1993, age 92, buried at Oak Hill Cemetery, Nyack, New York. 2 Academy Awards, Best Actress for The Sin of Madelon Claudet in 1931, and Best Supporting Actress for Airport in 1970, the first person to win the Oscar in both acting categories, the distinction achieved nearly 40 years after the first award. She lost her daughter Mary to polio in 1949. She continued working for another 40 years. The First Lady of the American Theater, a title repeated so consistently it eventually felt architectural rather than honorific, as if she had been built into the structure of American theatrical life. Buried at Oak Hill in the Hudson River town where she had lived for decades, the playwright Charles MacArthur's widow returned to the house on the river. Shirley Booth died October 16, 1992, age 94, buried at a private location on Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Best Actress at 53 for Comeback Little Sheba in 1952, her portrayal of Lola arriving from 30 years on Broadway, during which the film industry had found no use for her. She worked in television through the 1960s, Hazel running for 4 years, the series positioning her as a domestic comedian at a time when the industry's relationship to women over 50 was as dismissive as it has always been. She retired in 1994 and spent 18 years in Massachusetts, away from the industry that had taken 30 years to recognize her. The address of her grave kept private, as if she had decided the audience had already been given enough access to her life. Claudette Colbert died July 30, 1996, age 92, buried at Pointe-à-Pitre, Guadeloupe, French West Indies. Best Actress for It Happened One Night in 1934, the first film to sweep all 5 major Oscars. Famously resistant to being photographed from the left side of her face, a professional quirk directors had learned to accommodate through careful shot selection for 30 years. A stroke in 1993 affecting her speech, dying in Barbados and transported to Guadeloupe for burial, the French island where her family had roots. The actress who won the first clean sweep in Oscar history buried on a Caribbean island, the kind of exit that her timing as a comedic performer would have found entirely appropriate. They won the Oscar. They are in the ground. The award and the grave have in common only this: both are permanent and neither is what any of them were.